Hi there, it's Beauty Junkie. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to try out some complexion products I recently purchased through the Sephora holiday sale. I have a couple of samples for concealer and foundation. The concealer from Rare Beauty and the foundation from Fenty I have never tried before. I have a liquid blush from Rare Beauty to try out. A new Rare Beauty liquid foundation brush, and I have the Charlotte Tillbury Filmstar Bronze and Glow. I finally got the mini to try out, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna try all these products out on my face today, give you my first impressions and thoughts. Let's start out with the foundation because that's how I would normally start my face. So this is the little sample card that I got with my order through Sephora. And I have to say, I probably don't have the right shade. This is the lightest. I'd probably be 110, which is a little bit more cooler tone. This looks a little bit yellow, or more neutral. But we're going to use it anyway, even though it's not perfect. And so this is the Pro Filter Soft Matte Long Wear Foundation from Fenty. I'm sure many of you have tried this, but I unfortunately have not yet. So I'm happy to finally try foundation. Hopefully the sample is just as good as the real thing, but it looks pretty creamy and not dried out, so that is a good sign, but it does look very yellow. So I'm going to be using my new foundation brush. It's for liquid foundation. I didn't really have a good brush for liquid foundation, probably because I use sponges a lot, but I wanted to have a new brush to try to see if I can use a combination of brush and sponge rather than just relying on my sponge. So I've just put a little bit on the back of my hand, and I'm just gonna dip in. Oh boy, this is really light. Usually what I find with foundation brushes, like the ones I've used in the past, is that I don't get a good blend with them and my skin looks super textured. But what I think what will work, as long as I find a good brush, is if I apply it with the brush first and then blend it in with the sponge. It's probably gonna work out okay for me. But usually just using a brush by itself, I get a lot of texture. But this foundation feels really nice and lightweight so far. I don't know how I feel about how it looks. It looks a little textured and not great like how my foundation used to look back in the day. I have a lot of application issues. I think my makeup my pores just don't like foundation. So I'm gonna need more because I didn't really get my forehead yet. This feels not too liquidy. It feels pretty creamy. I mean, this doesn't look bad. I just feel like the damp sponge just kind of melts the product into my skin a little bit more. Because I look pretty freaking patchy on my nose. And I'm gonna go in with another layer on my nose, but still, yeah, that's generally how foundation looks on my nose when I don't use a sponge. Now I didn't put a primer down, but that usually doesn't make too much a difference with me because I have a lot of skincare on. But yeah, see how it just doesn't want to stick to my nose at all. Fun times. Alright. I think it looks pretty good on my cheeks. A little bit patchy on my nose and chin, but the rest of my face looks pretty good. So I think this brush is an improvement, but I'm still having the issues that I had before with other brushes. So I'm gonna go in with my Real Technique stamp sponge and apply a little bit more foundation with that. It also could be the formula. Maybe I'm not supposed to have a matte formula. And that's usually what I used to get in the past, is matte foundations, because I kind of have some oily combo skin. Maybe that's my mistake. Alright, I ended up just wiping off the foundation from my nose with the sponge because the foundation just sucked on to my pores and didn't move, so I can't really blend it out. And that happened on my chin and my nose, a little bit on my upper lip, and just anywhere where, I don't know, I guess my skin has some areas that just like to cling on to things. I don't know how to describe it. But I'm gonna just go in on my nose again with just my sponge and this foundation, just to see if this helps. I kind of have a feeling it's maybe the formulation of this. It's too full coverage or just too matte, like it dries too fast before I can blend it and move it around a little bit and kind of remove some of it. It just like clings. So not great first impressions with this. I don't really think the color is really the problem. I think it's the formula, and maybe I just can't do matte formulations anymore. Or maybe I never could. I mean, definitely looks better on my nose now that I've reapplied with the sponge versus the brush. And it, you know, there's probably nothing wrong with this brush. It's probably just my skin, my face. My nose definitely looks better now, not as patchy. But I do notice some other areas where the foundation just really sticks. Like on my forehead, you can kind of see it a little bit. Yikes. I think I have to go with more satin foundations or really lightweight sheer foundations and build them up, rather than having like a more medium fuller coverage matte that just kind of sucks onto your face and doesn't move. Sorry for being a little bit repetitive, but I'm just working through this formula. Doesn't seem to really work for me, the Fenty one, but I could see why a lot of people would like it, especially if you're more youthful than I am and a bit oilier. If you have that layer of oil, you're probably gonna like that formulation a lot. But if you do have sort of issues like I do with applying foundations with a brush, you might have better luck just going in with a sponge straight in. Yeah, I don't know. Alright, let's move on to the new Rare Beauty concealer. I don't know about this match either, but we're gonna get a feel for the formulation. I have 160 is the lightest shade. It looks like it will work. Yeah, it's one of the cool tones that they have to try. It's probably going to be a little bit too dark on me, which most people want a lighter concealer, but this looks like the lightest shade they have available. So this is 160C, and I'm just going to go in with my little sponge and plop this under my eyes. Actually doesn't look like too bad of a shade. Concealer feels a little bit thick, a little bit creamy. Like a little would go a long way. It's a little bit heavy. Maybe I went in with a little bit too much. kind of hard to apply with the sample. I think I look a little bit older. I don't know that this really helped me out that much in terms of making me look a little more rested. I think I look a little more tired. I don't know. It's a little bit heavier of a concealer than I'm used to. It's not bad. It's not my favorite formula, just trying it straight out. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think a little bit probably goes a long way. I think I would have a little bit of a hard time putting really light layers with how the formula is. Like, I'm not used to putting just a tiny dab and then spreading it all over. I'd rather be able to apply a little bit more and just spread it out rather than like having to put the tiniest amount and try to spread it. That can be a little bit hard to do. So I like a little bit of a lighter coverage that's easy to blend out and then build upon that if I want to, rather than having something thick and it's just so much that you have to like spread it out everywhere and then your face is full of a thick concealer. It's not terrible. Maybe I'll have to try it out again. Alright, let's go into the liquid blush, and this is in Grace. A little bit pinker than I thought. The bottle in the Sephora picture looked a little bit more purple, kind of an interesting shade, but then this actually looks more like the swatch, which is very pink. So a little bit pinker than I thought it would be, but we're gonna try it out. Applicator looks a little bit messy and funny, but it's kind of like a pointed lip gloss applicator with a little slant to it, and this is probably way too much product on my face. Oh boy. I'm gonna go in with my sponge. Woo. I think I saved that one. This is definitely a blush that is very pigmented and strong, and a little bit goes a long way. So a lot of product in here for how much you're actually going to use on your face. Go ahead and use a sponge again to kind of tone this down. Whew. I think it's pretty though. Definitely want to go light-handed with it. I don't think I was ready for that. Interesting. Alright, we're just gonna let that settle a little bit. Yeah, very bright blush. It has a nice natural finish to it, especially when I like use my sponge to kind of blend it in. It's not bad. I like a little bit more of a user-friendly formula where you, as I said, just like the concealer, when something's like so pigmented or so thick and you can only really apply a tiny drop, it's harder to spread that drop around. So same with the blush, like you really need one little drop. Rub it. If you need a little bit more, put a little tiny bit more, but don't go in with like a lot like I did. Otherwise it's harder to kind of take away what you already put on. But it looks like it's a nice color, kind of a strawberry. I can see I have like foundation that didn't quite go around my face. Oh boy, this video is kind of a disaster. Alright, I'm gonna put on some loose powder from Chantecaille. This is something I got this summer. And I just want to put on a little bit of powder before I try on the bronzer and highlight from Charlotte Tilbury. And this is just a really light, loose powder. My under eye looks a little bit crepey on the side. I think I just put a little bit too much of that concealer. And you can still see my blush. That is definitely staying on. Like, I feel like if I went swimming or something, this blush would stay put. Alright, on to the Charlotte Tilbury Sculpt Filmstar Bronze and Glow. This is the light version. We're going to do the bronzer first. I think it's bronzer. Yeah, Bronze and Glow. It's funny how this one says Sculpt, though. You would almost think, is this a contour powder? This looks pretty warmish. You can definitely tell this is a pigmented bronzer. You can actually see it going on. I'll go ahead and blend this out with my big brush. You can see I have a nice little bit of glow. I'd say this is like a very buildable bronzer. It's a little bit subtle, but it is pigmented. I like the result so far. Now I want to go in with a highlight shade here. And this looks very gold. And not like super blinding. I'm putting this on pretty thick, just so you guys can see it a little bit better. It is very like natural looking sort of tone. You can definitely use a lighter hand than I am and make it even more subtle. But I think it's very wearable, very pretty combination. This is going to be great for travel. It's not going to take up a lot of space. Just first impressions though, this isn't my favorite bronzer and highlighter. I think the bronzer is probably a better... I like the result of the bronzer more than I do the highlight. The highlight doesn't really look like anything special, but I don't mind it. It's not bad. It's not a bad pair, for sure. I just think you can get better stuff out there. And there's just so many options of bronzers and highlighters out there these days anyway. Well, that is it for all the products I wanted to try out with you. Let's have a little review. Let's talk about the brush. I think it applied my cheek area pretty well, the foundation, and I used the matte foundation. I will have to try this again with more of a, not a matte foundation, just more of a normal one or satin or a lighter coverage one, and see how I feel the result looks like, because I just have to see what the result looks like with a different formulation, because I felt like I still had a lot of issues in my chin and nose in particular with patchiness and the foundation not really sticking to my skin in a flattering way when I used the brush. When I removed it and put the foundation back on with just the sponge, things look a lot better. Still not perfect, but I think I still prefer the sponge for those areas, at least with the Fenty foundation. Speaking of the Fenty foundation, I don't like it, first impressions. I think the matte formula is too matte for me, and I had a hard time blending it out once I put it on my skin. So I don't really like that. I don't want to have to put tons of foundation on my skin to really get a nice thin coverage. I think it was hard to spread out with my brush. And it just caught to my skin in a very unflattering way. So I'm not a fan of this. It definitely doesn't work that well for my skin type. The concealer from Rare Beauty. I thought this was a bit thick. A little goes a long way, it seems like. I have trouble spreading out these kinds of formulas. When you can only apply a tiny bit and then try to spread it all the way around, it can be a little bit hard. So I think I applied probably too much, and I'm a little bit crepey, a little bit dry. So I don't really like the formula that much. I wouldn't buy the full size. And I don't even think it's a shade issue. I think it's just a thickness issue. The blush. I like the shade. I'm glad I ended up liking it. It wasn't quite what I expected to be from the pictures. I thought it'd be a little bit more purple and unique, a little bit more lavender, but this tended to look like a strawberry kind of color, and I think it looks nice. I wasn't expecting it to be this pigmented. A little goes a long way. So you gotta be really careful with the application. I think the formula dries out really nice. It doesn't stay liquid or tacky or anything like that. So it's like liquid to powder almost. But it's a nice, very pigmented. I think this is gonna last you a long time as long as it doesn't dry out. There's 7.5 milliliters in here. This is Grace. The Bronze and Glow. I think I like the bronzer more than the highlighter. I think the highlighter isn't really anything that special. I actually prefer the Hollywood Flawless Filter highlighter, the liquid one. That's not like a true highlighter. It's more of like a, I don't know, glowy kind of product that you can apply anywhere. I like that formula and that texture and result better than I do the powder highlight. The bronzer is nice and natural. It's a little bit warm for me, but I think the color is pretty good, and you know, it blended out really nicely. I think it warmed up my face a bit. I think it accomplishes the goal. I just don't know that I would go out and buy like a fuller size or buy a repeat of this, but I will keep trying it. I think I love the Charlotte Tilbury packaging. I like this is the mini. So not too many complaints about that product. I just think the highlighter is a little bit lackluster and just like, okay, you know, it gives you glow. It does the job. And that is it for my complexion products from my Sephora holiday sale haul. Please let me know if you have any questions. Click like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.